I'm responding to a claim that increasing restrictions and laws on gun ownership will lessen the amount of gun-related deaths. The advocate used three main secondary claims. One of them was gun control laws are successful in lowering crimes in other countries. The second one was fewer guns will lead to less violence. And lastly, the Second Amendment does not give the right to possess guns. Starting off with gun control laws are successful in lowering crimes in other countries. The advocate used an example that Australia placed gun control laws and hasn't had a mass crime shooting since. But the advocate did not give us any data on how many they had before they placed the law. For all we know, the one incident that she gave as an example could have been the only one that happened. Another problem was many other countries placed gun controls which did not affect crime rates at all. According to Dave Kopel, one of the most frequent and most inaccurate claims of gun banners is that gun control works in other countries. If only we would adopt the civilized gun policies of other nations, the gun banners promise, we could too enjoy the low crime rates of other countries. However, research found that gun control has little to no impact on crime. According to Bearing Arms, researchers looked at crime data from several European countries and found that countries with higher gun ownership often had lower murder rates. The study showed that Russia, which has strict gun controls, has 4 times the murder rate than the US. Another example is Germany, Finland, Norway, and France all have significant gun ownership and lower murder rates than other countries in Europe, like Luxembourg. Luxembourg has a ban on all types of guns, and they have 9 times the murder rate of Germany. The advocate's second claim was that fewer guns will lead to less violence. However, criminals can find other ways for violence other than guns. They can make bombs, they can use knives, they can use many other weapons. And if you take away guns from people, people will have less defense. According to USA Today, in 2009, 4 gunmen bursted into the Kaplan Brothers Blue Flame Corp demanding cash and threatening the employees that worked there and pistol whipping them. After that happened, a worker by the name of Augusto was prepared, and he bought a 12-gauge shotgun. In 2013, when another group of criminals came in to do the same thing, he pulled up his 12-gauge and shot them. He said, "Either I'm going to kill them or they're going to kill me." All he was trying to do was defend himself and the employees working with him from these criminals. Lastly, the advocate said that the Second Amendment does not give the right to possess guns. However, the Bill of Rights, the original 10 amendments, states that a well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, shall not be infringed. Thank you.
All right, the advocate's main point is labeled. The secondary claims are outlined. You did a signpost on the first point, so it was pretty easy to follow. You challenged the Australian example as basically being potentially inadequate to make a comparison from because we didn't have any data about what the experiences were like prior to the law being passed. So I thought that that's a reasonable press. That's the kind of press that you could make immediately after the argument. If you'd done any research, there might be more arguments to be making on this issue. As it is, I think it's a reasonable start on that point, but I'm not sure it's as convincing. The other arguments on that point, though, were a lot more convincing. You had good data that suggested that the country-by-country comparisons that are often made are problematic, that they ignored the rates of gun ownership and what the laws are. And I thought you had several good examples using Russia, and then you talked about Luxembourg versus Germany. That was a good counterexample to illustrate the point. I don't know that you ever really talk about the evidence that the advocate used, whether or not you thought they were using adequate grounds or whether or not their inferences were reasonable. Like I said, you're mostly depending on counterclaims on this particular point. The signpost on the second point basically comes down to a couple of things. You basically are saying, look, they could commit crimes other ways. Yeah, there's not a lot of bank robbery using bombs or something like that. I'm not sure that that's really what we're talking about here. That there are violent crimes that use other weapons. There's good information that suggests that people are injured and killed with other kinds of weapons. I think you could provide some basic data on that that would show that there's still a risk that's going to occur. The problems with the United States might have more to do with the culture that we live in and the population than it does the laws. I think there's a good argument to be made there, and you're not really addressing it on this particular point. The self-defense argument, though, I think needs to be stated as a self-defense argument, and you basically are trying to present the example and make the example be the basis of our making an inference that there's a need for this, whereas the example should be supporting a claim that you're making there, and I think if you make the claim a little bit more clearly, you'd be better off. All right, thank you.